All right. Now today we're all talking about cells, so let's get through this. Screen. Okay. Sorry about this. We'll stop sharing. Using cells. Okay. So let's finally get started. Okay. So cells are the living units. Okay. So we'll get these scientists. Okay. But one of the key things I want you guys to understand is that something called cell theory. Okay. Cells are fundamentally the smallest living units in the body. Okay. So basically, your body is literally made out of 1 trillion units of cells. Okay. But each cell can be functional as one individual unit, like bacteria and stuff, are only a single cell. Okay. A cell has to be able to do everything a living organism does, which is to obtain nutrients. It has to be able to make the molecules that is needed to survive. It has to dispose of waste. It has to maintain cell shape, and it has to replicate. Okay. Okay. Cells. Okay. Our cells have these things called organelles. Okay. Organelles literally mean little organs. Okay. So they're subunits of cells with very specific functions. Okay. Most of these cells have the same basic organelles. So if you take a look at a cell, so this is will be our model for the cell. Okay. One of your assignments that some of you guys have already done is to redraw this and label everything correctly. Okay. A cell has all these organelles. Most of the cells have all these organelles. There are some exceptions to that rule, but we won't really get into that. Okay. Most of the cells have all these organelles, but they have it in different numbers. Okay. Like for example, if you're a cell that needs a lot of energy, like mitochondria, cells that need a lot of energy, like muscle cells, right? Muscle cells that constantly twitch, you need a lot of energy, and therefore you will have a lot of mitochondria. Okay, and then cells that do a lot of making of products and stuff, like your pancreas producing insulin, you'll need a lot of ER and Golgi apparatus to pump this stuff out. Okay, and so different cells will have different amounts of this stuff, but all cells will have almost always all of this stuff. Okay. Okay. The plasma membrane. The plasma membrane defines the extent of the cell. Okay. It's kind of like the integument of the cell. It separates cell from not cell. Okay. So it separates something called the intracellular fluid, okay, from the extracellular fluid. Okay, that's not really important in anatomy right now, but that's going to become really important when we look at physiology of the cell. Okay, that'll be in your physiology class, which hopefully you'll take next. Okay, the structure of the membrane. The structure of a membrane is something called a fluid mosaic model. Okay, fluid means it flows and moves. Mosaic. A mosaic is an artwork that's made by either little pieces of glass glued together or little rocks glued together. Okay, and so the plasma membrane, this is what it looks like. It actually moves. Okay, and it's made out of these little tiny things. Okay, these little tiny things, these little things that look like they have a little ball with two little lines hanging off of them. It's called a phospholipid molecule. Okay, the little ball part, okay, is the polar head, and then the two wiggly lines is the non-polar tail, okay? The polar heads are attracted to water, the non-polar tails are repulsed by water. And so what you get when you put these two things together is a bilayer where there's attracted to water on the outside and attracted to the water on the inside. And in the middle, you have this layer that is completely not attracted to water, okay? And it literally hates water. That's why things have a hard time going from this side to that side of the cell, okay? And we'll discuss how it gets through that in a little bit, okay? There are two types of membrane proteins: integral proteins, which span the entire bilayer. So integral literally means across the bilayer, okay? So integral proteins span across the bilayer like this, okay? Peripheral proteins on the periphery of the bilayer. So they're going to be attached to the bilayer, but either only on the outside or only on the inside, and never both, okay? Okay. The functions of the plasma membrane. So the barriers, okay, provide substances, prevent a barrier from separating things outside the cell, okay? So things that are outside the cell have a hard time getting in through the bilayer, okay? Some plasma membranes act as receptors to determine what comes in and what comes out, and this makes the membrane selectively permeable, okay? So it can choose what goes in and what comes out. Okay. So, all right. Moving on. So, okay. So that short little clip talking about this. Okay. So here you have the lipid soluble solutes that get across the membrane very easily. Water molecules can get across not easily, but they do. Okay. Just because there's so much of it, it comes across. Okay. So that's simple diffusion. That's osmosis. Osmosis, diffusion of water across the membrane. Okay. Facilitated diffusion. There are molecules here that are too big to come across the membrane on its own. And so what happens is you have proteins with a little pore, and you can see one of those in the picture here. There's a protein with a little pore in the middle. And these red dots, okay, or the protein is designed to allow these little red dots to pass from one side to another, and only those red dots, okay? Though the green dots will be a different size and shape and won't be able to pass through this hole. The only thing that can pass through this hole are these little red dots. So facilitated diffusion, okay? You're still moving, so diffusion, you're always doing one big thing, and that's moving from high concentration to low concentration. Okay, that's facilitated diffusion. Active transport, okay, you're actively transporting things, and that active transport will require an energy molecule called ATP. Okay, I'm sure most of you guys learned what ATP was in high school. ATP is the currency, energy currency of the cell. Okay, so when a cell wants to use energy, it pays the currency of ATP. Okay, their active transport always pump substances across the plasma membrane against their concentration gradient. So even though there is only one of these here and more of these on the other side, I am willing to use the energy to pump this stuff across to the other side. Okay, so that is active transport. Active transport, you're actively using energy. Okay, these three right here are passive transport. Passive transport, you are not using energy. Okay. Okay, so I covered these two. Okay. Endocytosis. Okay, inside, cytosis, cell. Okay, endocytosis is the mechanism by which particles actually enter cells. Okay, large particles, not a small molecule that you can come across the membrane, but like an entire bacteria or an entire little droplet of water and stuff. Okay, I'm pretty sure you guys have seen like videos of like a white blood cell eating a bacteria. Okay, or at least pictures of that, and that is phagocytosis, cellular eating. Phage, you know what I mean? Eat cyto cell. Okay, Pinocytosis is cellular sipping. Okay, sipping is a better definition than they use drinking here. So cells, okay, especially the ones in your intestines and stuff, they have to constantly sample the environment. Okay, so what they do is they sit around and they constantly sample the environment a little bit. They taste the environment a little bit, just to see, like, is there sugar in the environment that I can get my hands on? Is there amino acids that I can get my hands on? And if there is, then it will take in more of it. If there isn't, it won't do anything. Like, you don't want to waste time like trying to get sugar into your cell. There's no sugar on the outside. Okay. Okay. Receptor-mediated endocytosis. So this is phagocytosis. This is pinocytosis. This is receptor-mediated endocytosis. Okay, you have these receptors on the surface of the cell, and the receptors will bind these little green dots. Okay, if enough of the green dots bind to the receptors, it will cause the shape of the cell to fold a little bit, and it'll fold a little bit. And then all of a sudden, all these little green dots are on the inside. And a good example of this is insulin. Okay, when you eat a lot of sugar, your body releases insulin. Okay, insulin are these little green dots. Okay, when you release enough insulin, these little green dots will bind to these proteins and cause it to fold. And now you have insulin inside of the cell. And once you have insulin on the inside of the cell knows what to do. Okay? Okay. Exocytosis. Okay? Exocytosis is a mechanism that moves substances outside the cell. So it's the opposite of endocytosis. Okay? So here, you start off, you put it in a little lipid bubble here, you attach it here, and you release. Okay, don't worry about B snares and T snares. Okay, just exocytosis is the opposite of endocytosis. Okay. All right, the cytoplasm and the cytosol. Okay, the cytoplasm is is internal to the cell membrane. Okay, and consists of cytosol. Cytosol is the jelly-like fluid. Okay, in which the cellular elements are suspended. Okay, from our point of view, cytosol looks like water. But if you're looking at a cellular point of view, if you shrink yourself down to the cell size, then the cytosol looks like jelly. Okay, it's gooey, sticky, consists of water, ions, enzymes. Okay, okay. I will stop right here. So this is part 1. I'll pick this up for part 2. Okay.